When President Obama honored our Afghanistan war dead by taking part in a military ritual at Dover Air Force Base yesterday, it was easily predictable that a Republican would criticize him for it. And in our fourth story on the countdown, the former vice president's pet attack dog, his daughter Liz Cheney, has now done just that. And once again, she wasn't going to let the facts get in her way. On the John Gibson radio show yesterday, Ms. Cheney was rehashing her father's fact-free critique of President Obama's handling of the war in Afghanistan. Then Mr. Gibson asked her about the president's appearance at Dover Air Force Base.
I don't know why he went to Dover. I mean, I think that clearly it is very important for our commander-in-chief, whenever he can, in whatever way possible, to pay tribute to our fallen soldiers, our fallen military folks. But I think, you know, what President Bush used to do was to do it without the cameras. And I don't understand sort of showing up with the White House press pool with photographers and asking family members if you can take pictures. That's really hard for me to get my head around. I think it's an honorable and important thing for us to pay tribute. There's no greater sacrifice people make to the nation. But it was a surprising way for the president to choose to do it.
As we mentioned yesterday, President Bush never went to Dover Air Force Base to honor dead American soldiers on their final journey home. And Vice President Cheney never did either. Hey, Liz, have you ever lost a relative in battle? I have. My cousin Johnny, West Point graduate, just like his father before him. I wish the president or the vice president had met his casket on the way home. You know what never means, Liz? It means zero. It means that in over 7 years of 2 wars, your dad never left the comfort of his White House office or the vice president's mansion and got himself up to Dover to bear witness to how his warmongering fell on families of dead American soldiers. Never, not once. Liz, don't let your dad do this to you. Don't let him parade you onto the stage to defend the indefensible. Let him suffer the full weight of the shame that we know he must feel when he watches Barack Obama do what he never had the decency to do. President Bush did meet with grieving military families in private, and he went to military hospitals to visit the wounded. As for Ms. Cheney's reference to cameras, the policy of banning media coverage of coffins continued unaltered throughout the Bush administration. Thus, even families that wanted media coverage of their loved one's ceremony were not given any choice in the matter. Furthermore, President Obama did not make any special requests to any of yesterday's 18 families, as Ms. Cheney implies. I mean, lies. The vast majority of those families had already made their individual decisions about media coverage under the current policy before the notification that President Obama would be part of the ceremony. As for Dick Cheney, when he was vice president, he sometimes met with the war wounded, but like President Bush, he never went to Dover either. Never. And a reminder, Mr. Cheney successfully sought out 5 deferments from the draft to avoid having to serve his country in the Vietnam War. Mr. Cheney's 5th and final deferment, a result of his wife becoming pregnant with Liz. Mr. Cheney was granted a 3A status, the hardship exemption, by his draft board, which was available to men with children at that time. Let's call in MSNBC political analyst, author of Renegade, The Making of a President, and senior strategist at Public Strategies, Richard Wolff. Good evening, Richard.
Good evening, Lawrence.
We predicted with Michael Betzschloss on this show last night that, of course, the president would be criticized by someone. It comes as no surprise that Liz Cheney was the very, very first to rush to the microphones. What does the Cheney family think this country thinks when, after 7 years of failure by Dick Cheney's strategizing on Afghanistan, President Obama is left at Dover, still receiving war dead from Afghanistan?
Well, here's what is offensive and egregious about the criticism from the Cheney family about what President Obama has done with war policy review and with what he did at Dover Air Force Base. The idea, the sort of central founding idea that Cheney had was that after Vietnam, or through Vietnam, the country lost its willpower. It lost its seriousness about national security challenges and disrespected the troops. And therefore, it was really important for future presidents to respect the contribution, the sacrifice of American servicemen and women. And that's what President Obama has been doing. That's what the policy review is. You can say that he's taking too long. You can disagree with the policy results at the end of it. But you can't say that he's not taking it seriously. And you cannot say that he's not showing the utmost respect for the fallen and the troops who are currently serving. And I just think that, I don't understand why Liz Cheney would think that the cameras themselves are disrespectful. I thought it was a very responsible, honorable coverage of something that we should all respect and pay our utmost respect and honor for. So the whole criticism is perplexing.
The Cheney family criticism currency is totally devalued, I think, in our political discussion these days. But doesn't something like this from Liz Cheney force an even further devaluation of it? Doesn't it now seem like there isn't anything the President of the United States can do, including saluting the coffins of the dead, that will not bring virulent, unthinking criticism from Cheney family members?
Well, it certainly seems that way, because this was pretty innocent, okay? You know, they asked the families for their approval. There was one family that said so. That was the only picture there was. And beyond that, it just strikes me that there's an attempt to politicize not just the troops, and there was plenty of photo ops with troops through the entire period of the Bush presidency and the Bush re-election campaign. But beyond that, to politicize the fallen. It has been a tradition, not just in this country, but every other country that commemorates the war dead, that it is a national, even an international symbol. So I don't understand why you'd want to play political games with it. I really don't.
Richard, we now know how the Vice President skated by possible perjury charges of his own. The notes from his FBI interview are out now. It indicates that he testified, despite all of his handwriting on Joe Wilson's op-ed piece in the New York Times, he testified that he didn't remember. Couldn't quite remember whether he talked to Scooter Libby about that, and then Libby testified he couldn't remember either. Maybe they did, maybe they didn't. I spoke to a federal prosecutor this afternoon who said that is a flawless, an absolutely flawless and classic seeming coordination of bits of testimony to squeak them both past that prosecutor on that point. Do you think that if the public had known exactly how close Cheney had played this at the time he was in office, there would have been an even larger reaction to his role in this?
Well, I think Fitzgerald, the prosecutor, gave us plenty of clues. He said there was a cloud over the vice presidency, and that cloud turns out to be the kind of foggy place where not only does he not remember anything, but apparently he spoke to Karl Rove about Wilson, but never mentioned, as far as he could recall, talking about Valerie Plame. He talked about the husband, but not the wife. I don't think so.
Richard Wolff of MSNBC and Public Strategies, also author of Renegade, thank you very much for your time tonight.
Thank you, Lawrence.